This is the DR70-F built with HMX clouds and GMK Mictlan. But before we get into that, we're going to discuss what the board has to offer. In this video, we'll unbox it, build it, and try to see if it's overall worth getting. By the way, I borrowed this kit for the sole purpose of just making content. I didn't get to keep this, nor did I get paid for it, so all my opinions are really my own. Now, this keyboard also comes with an interchangeable layout orientation, which you can rock normally or southpaw. I personally haven't had one yet, given that I'm right-handed, but I'm down to try new stuff every now and then. It's a fresh look on the table too. Speaking of, let's go through what DaringRun included within the kit. Pretty unique keyboard bag with a very interesting feel to the exterior. Inside will be 3 straps holding everything. In the accessory compartment will be the plate, PCB, and the foam kit. I'll be doing 2 configs with the board in a Thocky profile and a clacky one. More on that later. There's also an accessory box at the middle left. Inside will be complimentary Allen wrenches and extra screws, the silicone gaskets, Type-C daughter board, 2 ribbon cables, and a silicone package holding the LED shine blocker and bump-ons for the case. All that pinched in a small box that's barely the length of my Apple Pencil. Now for the fun part, the keyboard itself. I was caught aback by the weight when I picked this up. I thought with the size of it, it would be heavy. This isn't the case all too much though. The anodization is great for its price, although it's very fingerprint heavy. I had to wipe it multiple times just to showcase it, and it was still there. Sorry about that. Moving forward, the bezels aren't too thick nor thin. The edges have this eye-catching chamfers that overall elevate the aesthetic of the board, and it also has a gorgeous middle frame accent around the whole thing. The brass weight at the back, housing what I'm assuming to be the daughter board, is a nice touch as well. Without further ado, let's go ahead and build her right up. First things first when building all the keyboards, let's prepare our stabilizers. For this board, I'm providing my own set of TXAP screw ends, which I voluntarily gave and never got it back because they said they would put a good board in for me, and we'll tune it and lube it with just 205 grade 0. Now we'll work on the PCB. It currently comes in the standard layout wherein the arrow keys are on your right side. So we'll rock that for the first build. Next up is to install the stabilizers we just did. I'll be building this board with a 7U spacebar because that's what I prefer. But what do you think about it? Are you a 6.25U fan? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, I installed all the stabilizers needed on the PCB and got the foam kit included with the kit. Again, I'll do another build with no foams right after this one, so hang tight. I started with the PE foam. I cut it right under the stabilizer so I could pull it out without removing the stabs. Then put the plate foam, then took the PC plate out of the wrap to find 3 pieces of it. One for the nav cluster, another for the macro extension, and another one for the main keyboard. I then positioned it one by one on top of the foams. Then whipped out the MZZ1 switches I recently got at this time. Proceeded to mount the switches, then deemed the PCB assembly complete. Also kind of a bummer that this kit only included the polycarbonate plate with it, since I wanted to hear the acoustics of the board without foams, and with an alu plate. But hey, if it's a good board, regardless of the config, it will be good. Now as you can see, I've taken the screws out of the case in order to open it. Upon lifting the bottom case, we'll see the middle piece sandwiched in between. Interestingly enough, these have silicone bumps that may seem to be force brakes to avoid ping, or it may simply be just bumps to avoid movement. The DR70-F comes with 2 mounting options. The stock option, if you choose to buy the regular kit, comes with gasket mounting using these pieces of rubber. Feel-wise, they tend to lean on the harder side. The gaskets will have 2 surfaces, a flat side and a ribbed side. On several builds I've seen with this keyboard, the ribbed side faces down. However, a friend of ours mentioned that using the flat side, which makes the PCB closer to the bottom of the case, further reducing the space for hollowness to occur. Since we're showcasing the keyboard, of course we'll pick what's proven to be better. On my final build though, I've switched it up to the other side to show contrast if you can spot any. Here you can see I've connected the ribbon cable to the installed daughter board. I then whipped out the 2 thin sheets that I'm assuming to be case foams. I then positioned everything to place, making sure the gaskets are in the right spots, and then I closed it all up using the screws we set aside earlier. As you've seen in the intro, we've used GMK Mictlan, especially in the Noche Negra base kit to match the stealthy look of this beautiful keyboard. And here we have our first build with all foams installed. Foams definitely make any board sound good if you're into that type of profile. It eliminates unnecessary hollowness and pings, making it into this creamy, thocky goodness. The MZZ1 switches also performed really well considering how cheap it is. Now that we've heard it with foams, let's open her right up and change everything. For this next build, I'll be 1. Switching up the layout to southpaw. 2. Removing all the foams but retaining at least one sheet of the case foam to break the contact between the PCB and the case. And 3. Use the same MZZ1 switches for contrast. I know I said 2 builds, but technically the last sound test I'll be showcasing in this video is just a change of switches with the exact same config. After opening the case up and removing the ribbon cable from the PCB, dismantling is in order. It's pretty straight up if you know how the process works. So let's skip to the heart-stopping act the board requires to switch up the layout, breaking out the PCB. And I apologize in advance, because I didn't tell you all earlier to subscribe to the channel. It helps me a lot and further motivates me to make these videos, all with just a click of a button. Now that we've worked that up, assembling the PCB will require me to work on 3 different parts now that we have it all separated. It's really not big of a challenge here, but definitely feels janky to handle and put back together. After all that's done, let's skip the process and jump straight to the sound test. This time again, with no foams and the MZZ ones. The most noticeable change was indeed hollowness. It's not really getting picked up as I've heard it in person, but the no foams build made it sound kinda hollow, especially near the bezels. Alphas are really great though, but the spacebar was pinging and didn't have as much oomph as I'd wanted to have with no foams. At this point, I gave it the benefit of the doubt and put on HMX clouds on it. I didn't get to record the build process, but the gasket orientation I mentioned earlier, I flipped to the other side. I'll upload that sound test on another video on the channel, so check that out right after and tell me if it sounded better than our second build. For now, I'll play it slightly in the background while I summarize all my thoughts about this keyboard. First, with the performance it packs at around $139 US, I'd pretty much say it's still a win. It's still a good board that swings both ways in terms of sound profile, and the typing feel is also there. Do take note that the board is quite lengthy, so be sure to measure your desk space before picking this up. Second, the sound profile is quite lively for the config we built. Typing feel has resistance to it, but not really too stiff. But what offs me is the spacebar like I mentioned earlier. I'm a huge spacebar guy, and I believe it's what holds everything together. And to be honest, I was a little bit intimidated with building it given that I don't look at build guides, but in the end, it was pretty straightforward to say the least. If you got one and don't know what to do, feel free to just save this video and go back to it. At this point, there should be enough reasons mentioned in this video to either get your hands on this keyboard or veer away from it. But to sum everything up, I'd give this board a solid 7. That'll be it for this one. Please consider subscribing to the channel as it'll help me a lot in doing so. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.